The light under the bedroom door pulsed like a heartbeat. At first I thought it was just the hallway bulb flickering. Old houses do that sometimes. Wires sighing in the walls, electricity drifting through the circuits like a tired breath. But this wasn't random. It was too steady. Bright, dim, bright, dim. A slow rhythm about the pace of a resting pulse. I lay on my back staring at the thin bar of light spilling across the dark floorboards. The rest of the room was quiet enough that I could hear the soft tick of cooling pipes in the walls and the faint rustle of my blanket when I breathed. Bright, dim, bright, dim. The glow reached farther across the floor when it brightened, then shrank again like a lung exhaling. I checked my phone for the time. 2:41 a.m. The hallway light shouldn't even be on. I remembered switching it off before bed. I was certain of that. I'd stood in the doorway and reached for the switch like I did every night. The pulsing continued. Bright, dim, bright, dim. I told myself it had to be something electrical. Maybe the bulb was failing. Maybe the wiring was shorting in a pattern that just happened to look rhythmic. But the longer I watched it, the harder that explanation felt. The timing was too perfect. It was alive with intention. I sat up slowly in bed. The mattress creaked under me, loud in the silence. The light under the door brightened, then dimmed. When I swung my legs over the side of the bed and placed my feet on the cold wood floor, the glow paused for half a second. Then, bright, dim, faster now. I froze. The change was subtle but unmistakable. The pulse had quickened, like a heart reacting to movement. I waited. My own heartbeat climbed into my throat as I stared at the thin, glowing line beneath the door. Bright, dim, bright, dim, still faster than before. That's stupid, I whispered into the dark. My voice sounded thin and dry. I stood up. The pulse sped again. Bright, dim, bright, dim. The rhythm now matched the nervous tempo inside my chest. I took a slow step toward the door. The floorboards gave a soft groan beneath my weight. The hallway light brightened sharply in response, as if reacting. Then dimmed. Another step. Bright, dim. I crouched down near the door and placed my palm against the wood. It was warm. Not warm like a bulb heating the air, warm like skin. I pulled my hand away quickly. The pulse continued. Bright, dim. I pressed my ear against the door. Nothing. No footsteps. No movement in the hallway. No hum of electricity. Just silence. Except a faint thud, so soft I almost missed it. Thud. Then the light brightened. Thud. Dimmed again. My stomach tightened. The sound was perfectly synchronized with the pulse. Something on the other side of the door was beating. I straightened slowly and wrapped my fingers around the doorknob. The metal was colder than the rest of the door. The light surged brighter the moment I touched it, then dimmed. Thud. My hand trembled. Just a light, I muttered. I turned the knob and opened the door. The hallway was empty. The overhead bulb glowed steadily, casting the same dull yellow light it always had. No flickering, no pulsing, just ordinary light. The thin strip on the floor disappeared as the door swung open fully. I stepped into the hallway. The house was silent. The kitchen at the far end sat in darkness. The bathroom door was half closed. Everything exactly where it should be. I reached up and flipped the hallway switch off. The bulb clicked. Darkness swallowed the hall. For a moment I felt ridiculous standing there in the dark, breathing too loudly. Then, light returned under my bedroom door. Bright, dim, bright, dim. But the hallway was still dark. I stared at the glowing line. The pulse continued from inside my bedroom. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. Slowly, I turned around. The door I had just walked through was closed again. I was certain I hadn't shut it. The light beneath it pulsed steadily across the hallway floor. Bright, dim, bright, dim. My throat went dry. I stepped closer. The glow expanded toward my feet with every beat, then shrank, as if breathing. I reached for the knob again. This time it resisted. Locked. I hadn't locked it. I twisted harder. Nothing. Behind the door, the pulse quickened. Bright, dim, bright, dim. Thud. The faint sound came again, louder now. Thud. The door trembled slightly beneath my hand. My mind raced through possibilities that didn't make sense. Someone inside. Something malfunctioning. A dream. But the rhythm was undeniable now. Not electrical. Biological. A heartbeat. Thud. Bright. Thud. Dim. I leaned down and pressed my eye to the narrow gap beneath the door. At first I saw only the familiar floorboards of my bedroom. Then something moved. A shadow slid slowly across the light. But it wasn't shaped like a person. It stretched across the floor in long branching lines that didn't match anything in the room. And when the light brightened again, I saw something worse. The shadow was connected to me. It extended from beneath the door toward my feet, matching my posture exactly, except for one detail. It had two arms pressed against the door from the other side. Waiting. The pulse accelerated rapidly. Bright, dim, bright, dim. My chest tightened as the rhythm synced perfectly with my own racing heart. And then I understood. The light wasn't copying a heartbeat. It was following one. Mine. Thud. Bright. Thud. Dim. The shadow beneath the door lifted its head. And the light flared violently bright as my heart skipped. Her voice echoed from the attic. At first I thought it came from outside. Some stray sounds slipping through the roof vents, a radio drifting from a neighbor's open window, the way voices sometimes travel strangely at night. But the house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that settles into old wood and makes every board hold its breath. I stood in the hallway listening. Above me, the attic beams creaked softly as the house cooled in the night air. A slow shifting of timber, the faint dry sigh of dust moving somewhere above the ceiling. Then it came again. Hello! The word stretched thin by distance and wood. It was her voice. Not similar. Not close. Exactly hers. I didn't answer immediately. My mouth had gone dry, and the silence between sounds felt heavy, like something waiting. She couldn't be in the attic. She had left 2 weeks ago. Packed her suitcase while the late afternoon light poured through the windows, speaking gently about needing space, about time, about things we both pretended not to understand. She had closed the door behind her and walked down the gravel drive. I watched until the car disappeared. The attic hatch hadn't even been opened since before winter. Yet, hello! The voice came again, muffled through the ceiling, distorted by the angles of the rafters. The acoustics of the house turned the word hollow, stretched into a ghost of itself. I swallowed and called up toward the ceiling. Who's there? My voice rose into the wooden ribs of the house. For a moment nothing answered. Then, who's there? Her voice repeated it. But not quite the same. The echo was wrong. The words returned before the sound of my own voice had fully faded. As if the attic had known what I was going to say. I stared upward. A faint shiver moved through the beams overhead. The floorboards beneath my feet creaked softly as I took a step toward the narrow staircase that led to the attic hatch. The house smelled faintly of old wood and dust. I called again. Is someone up there? The question hung in the air. For a long moment there was only the quiet settling of the house. Then the voice answered. Is someone up there? The tone was hers. But the rhythm wasn't. It sounded slightly delayed, like a recording played back through warped tape, and the echo stretched the last word too long. There. My chest tightened. I climbed the first step. The staircase groaned. The attic hatch sat at the top of the narrow stairs, a square panel cut into the ceiling with a pull ring hanging from its center. Dust drifted lazily in the dim hallway light. I stopped halfway up the stairs. Emily? I said quietly. Her name felt fragile in the house. For a moment nothing answered. Then, from the attic, Emily. But I hadn't said it yet. The voice came before the sound had left my mouth. I froze. My throat tightened as the realization crept slowly through my mind. The attic hadn't repeated the word. It had anticipated it. Above me the beams creaked again, a slow shifting sound like old bones. Don't do that, I whispered. The words barely carried past my lips. From above. Don't do that. The voice echoed softly, then added something else. Please. I hadn't said that. I stared up at the hatch. Dust trembled around its edges. Emily? I said again. The reply came instantly. Emily? But the tone was wrong. It sounded curious, like someone trying out a word they'd just learned. The stairs groaned as I climbed the rest of the way. The closer I got to the hatch, the stronger the smell of attic dust became. Dry insulation, aged wood, the faint metallic tang of nails and old air. I reached the top step and stood beneath the square panel. My heart beat loudly in the narrow stairwell. Who's up there? I asked. The attic answered. Who's up there? Then softly, you are. The pull ring swayed slightly. I stared at it for a long moment before reaching up. My fingers brushed the metal. The attic creaked above me. Don't open it, her voice whispered. But I hadn't heard the words leave my mouth yet. I hesitated. The ring swayed again. Don't open it, the attic repeated. Then the voice changed slightly. It sounded closer to the way she used to speak. The softness, the small breath between words. Please. My chest tightened painfully. For a moment I almost believed she might actually be up there. Some strange misunderstanding. Some impossible explanation waiting in the dark. I pulled the ring. The hatch swung down with a dry wooden groan. A ladder unfolded slowly toward the floor. Dust drifted downward in pale clouds. The attic above was dark. A narrow triangle of shadow framed by old beams. I climbed. Each rung creaked beneath my weight. The air grew thicker with dust and stale insulation. At the top, I pushed my head through the opening. The attic stretched out before me. Low beams, cardboard boxes, the slanted roofline cutting the darkness into jagged shapes. Moonlight seeped through a small circular window at the far end. The space was empty, completely empty. But the moment my head cleared the opening. Hello. Her voice spoke softly behind me. I spun around. No one stood there. The attic was still. Dust floated in the air like suspended ash. Then I heard it again. Hello. But this time the sound came from everywhere. The rafters, the floorboards, the narrow walls of wood and insulation. The entire attic whispered with her voice. Not repeating now. Learning. Practicing. I backed slowly toward the ladder. Stop, I said. The attic echoed. Stop. Then gently, stay. The word stretched across the beams like a soft breath. I felt something shift beneath my feet. A faint vibration moving through the boards. The attic inhaled. The sound was subtle but unmistakable. Wood creaked. Dust lifted. And when the attic spoke again, the voice was perfect. Exactly hers. I'm home. I stared into the darkness, heart pounding. Then the voice continued. But the words weren't hers. They were mine. Things I had whispered in this house when she was gone. Things I had never said out loud. I miss you. The attic repeated it softly. Then another. I wish you'd come back. The beams creaked gently. The dust drifted through the moonlight. And I finally understood. The attic hadn't learned her voice. It had learned mine. It had listened to every word I had spoken alone in this house. Every whisper. Every confession. And now it was using her voice to say them back to me. As I stood frozen in the dark, the attic spoke once more. Quietly. Perfectly. Climb down. I stepped onto the ladder. And before my foot touched the second rung, her voice echoed again. From the attic. But this time it didn't sound like an echo. It sounded like it was coming from the stairs below me.